All right, so have you ever heard of like a musician or someone and you think, man, I should really know more about them?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I feel right now about Lady Kola.
Oh, yeah.
We've got this podcast episode. It's from the Juba Celebrity Scoop,
Mm-hmm.
and they focus on like new artists on the scene. And it sounds like she's making some serious waves.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me right off the bat is they're describing her as, like, not just a musician, but, like, a potential movement,
Oh, wow.
which is a pretty bold claim.
Yeah, that's a big statement.
Yeah.
What do you think makes someone become like more than just an artist, but a movement?
Well, I think if you look at, like, the history of Afrobeat in general, it's not just a genre of music. It's often been very intertwined with social and political commentary.
Right.
You know, artists like Fela Kuti, back in the day, they used their music as a way to challenge authority, speak out against injustice.
Yeah.
And their music became like a rallying cry for change.
Wow.
And that's what made them more than just performers. They
Mhm.
became symbols of resistance.
So are they saying that Lady Kola is on that same path?
Mm.
Using her music to like make a statement?
It's possible. I mean, we need to dig a little deeper into like the content of her music.
Right.
But that movement label definitely hints at like a deeper purpose.
Okay, so movement implies big things.
Yeah.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, who is Lady Kola?
Yeah.
All we know from this podcast is that she was like born and raised somewhere.
Right.
They didn't really get into details.
Yeah, that struck me as odd too. I was kind of like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll reveal more later, or maybe it's intentional.
Yeah.
Like by not specifying where she's from, it allows the focus to be solely on like her music and her message.
Oh, interesting.
Creates sort of like a universality to her story.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like her background is secondary
Mm-hmm.
to what she's bringing musically.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the music.
Yeah.
The podcast uses all these like big descriptors, unique sound, powerful lyrics, electrifying stage presence. Like, okay, that's grabbing my attention.
Yeah.
But what does it all mean?
Yeah, you're right. Those are pretty standard buzzwords
Yeah.
in the music industry.
Right.
We need to look beyond the hype. But one thing that did jump out at me is this idea of her blending traditional African rhythms with like contemporary influences.
Okay.
And that electrifying stage presence makes me think of like performers like Miriam Makeba,
Oh, yeah?
who was known for this incredible energy, you know, drawing on traditional African dance and rhythms.
Yeah.
I wonder if Lady Kola's performances might be weaving in that same energy, but in a modern context.
That's a really great comparison.
Yeah.
I'm definitely picturing something high energy, maybe with some traditional instrumentation mixed in with modern elements.
Yeah.
And it makes sense given that the podcast mentioned her childhood was steeped in a mix of genres, like high life, Afrobeat, R&B, hip hop.
Wow.
Seems like she's pulling from a really diverse well of inspiration.
Exactly. And just to clarify for our listener, high life is a genre of West African music that emerged in the early 20th century, known for its guitar work and upbeat rhythms.
Oh?
It was actually a precursor to Afrobeat, which Fela Kuti popularized in the 60s and 70s.
Wow.
So Lady Kola, having those influences in her background, suggests a deep connection to the roots of African music.
Yeah, so it sounds like she's building on this rich musical heritage, but also bringing her own contemporary spin to it.
Absolutely.
So how does all this translate into like actual success?
Yeah.
Because the podcast talks about her going from like local talent shows to catching the eye of industry insiders.
Right.
Like quite a leap.
It is, and it speaks to her having something special that sets her apart.
For sure.
Like, think about it in the music world, especially now with so many artists vying for attention online.
Yeah.
What does it take to truly stand out?
I'd imagine it takes more than just talent. You need a certain charisma stage presence, a message that resonates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about capturing a mood, an energy, a feeling that connects with people on like a deeper level. And often that breakout moment comes from like a specific song.
Ah, yes, the mysterious breakout single.
Yeah.
That the podcast keeps hinting at but never names.
I know.
That's driving me crazy, honestly.
Playing it close to the vest with that detail.
Yeah.
But it does make you want to dig deeper and find out for yourself what all the fuss is about.
I'm already on it.
Yeah.
But before I get lost in the music,
Okay.
there's another aspect of Lady Kola that I'm curious about.
Yeah.
The podcast mentioned her music being a form of expression and activism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to understand that better.
Okay.
What kind of issues is she addressing through her music?
Well, they touched on themes like social issues, empowerment, and self-love.
Okay.
These are all really powerful concepts.
Yeah.
Particularly with an Afrobeat, which has a history of reflecting, like, the realities and aspirations of African communities.
And it sounds like she's becoming a role model, especially for young women,
Mm-hmm.
in what's often seen as like a male-dominated industry.
Absolutely. Her rise to prominence is a testament to her talent and determination.
Yeah.
And it sends a powerful message to young women who aspire to, like, make their mark in music.
Right.
Seeing someone like you succeed in a space where you're often underrepresented
Yeah.
can be incredibly inspiring.
It makes you wonder, how does her success tie into the broader conversation about like representation in music?
Mm-hmm.
Is she actively challenging the status quo?
That's a great question to understand that we need to take a closer look at, like, the specifics of her music, the lyrics, the themes, the overall message she's conveying.
Okay, so we've got this like intriguing artist with a potentially powerful message.
Yeah.
But how far is her reach?
Right.
The podcast mentioned collaborations and international stages, which suggests she's aiming for like a global audience.
It seems so, and that raises another question.
Okay.
How is she navigating the music industry to achieve those ambitions? Is she staying independent, or is she working with a label?
That's a good point.
Yeah, knowing how she's building her career would give us more insight into her strategy and goals.
It would, and it might also offer clues about what her next steps might be.
Yeah.
Is she working towards a debut album?
Mm-hmm.
Is she planning a major tour? These are all questions we should be asking as we continue to explore her story.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've got this fascinating image of Lady Kola emerging,
Yeah.
an artist who's not just making music, but potentially starting a movement, drawing on a rich musical heritage and using her platform to address important social issues.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is a lot to unpack,
Yeah.
and I'm eager to hear what you, our listener, are thinking. What stands out to you so far? What are you most curious to learn as we continue this deep dive?
Because here's where it gets really interesting. What if all these early signs are pointing to something even bigger?
Okay.
What if Lady Kola is on the path to becoming a global icon?
Wow.
What would that mean for Afrobeat as a genre and for her message?
Okay, that's a thought-provoking question. I guess we'll have to keep listening to find out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing to think about. Like,
Yeah.
imagine the impact if her music reaches a worldwide audience.
Yeah.
Could she be the artist who, like, brings Afrobeat to the forefront of the global music scene?
I mean, we've seen other genres cross over into the mainstream, like K-pop reggaeton.
Right.
So why not Afrobeat? But what would it take for Lady Kola to, like, reach that level?
Right.
The podcast hinted at, like, upcoming projects, maybe even a debut album.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think those are essential steps for her to take?
Yeah, I mean, an album can definitely be a statement piece,
Yeah.
a way for an artist to showcase their full range and vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that in today's music landscape, where singles kind of dominate the charts, artists still see value in creating a cohesive body of work like an album.
Maybe it's about creating a more immersive experience for the listener.
Right.
A single is like a taste, but an album is like a full meal.
Yeah.
Speaking of meals,
Yeah.
I'm still hungry for information about that breakout single.
Oh.
The podcast was so vague about it. No
Yeah.
title, no details about like what makes it special.
I know they're deliberately teasing us,
Yeah.
but perhaps that's part of the strategy.
Yeah.
Create an air of mystery. Like,
Yeah.
make the listener curious enough to, like, seek out the music on their own.
It's definitely working on me.
Yeah.
Let's say that single does take off and becomes a global hit.
Okay.
What do you think would be like the ripple effects?
Right.
Would it just be about Lady Kola's success? Or could it have a broader impact on Afrobeat as a whole?
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting. Like, if her music resonates with a global audience, it could open doors for other Afrobeat artists to gain wider recognition.
Right.
It could be a game changer for the genre, pushing it further into the mainstream.
And what about the cultural impact? Afrobeat is more than just music, right?
Exactly.
It's a reflection of African culture, history, and identity.
Absolutely. And if Lady Kola becomes a global icon, it could reshape perceptions of Africa around the world. Her music could be a bridge between cultures, fostering understanding and appreciation for, like, the richness and diversity of African artistry.
That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with these like big picture ideas,
Right.
I'm curious about the practicalities.
Yeah.
What would like making it to the next level actually look like for Lady Kola?
Well, I think securing a solid record deal with a label that understands her vision would be a major step. It sounds like she's already caught the attention of industry insiders, so that might be in the works.
And what about touring?
Yeah.
The podcast mentioned international stages, which suggests she's already building a global presence.
Touring is essential for any artist who wants to connect with their fans on a personal level.
Yeah.
And for someone like Lady Kola, whose music is so energetic and vibrant,
Right.
seeing her perform live would be an incredible experience.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
But let's say she achieves all of this.
Okay.
The record deal, the global tour, the critical acclaim. What would be the ultimate measure of success for her?
Right.
Would it be about awards and chart positions or something more intangible?
That's a great question, and it really depends on her personal goals and motivations.
Yeah.
You know, some artists are driven by recognition and accolades, while others are more focused on creating meaningful art that connects with their audience.
And for someone like Lady Kola, who seems to be driven by a deeper purpose,
Yeah.
maybe success is measured by the impact her music has on the world. Is she inspiring change? Is she empowering others? Is she using her platform to make a difference?
Those are all valuable metrics of success, and ultimately, it's up to each listener to decide what resonates with them, what moves them, what makes them believe in an artist's vision.
I love that it's not just about the numbers.
Right.
It's about the feeling, the connection, the lasting impression an artist leaves on you.
Exactly. And speaking of lasting impressions,
Okay.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts, dear listener. What's your definition of success for an artist like Lady Kola?
Ooh.
What are you hoping to hear or experience as you explore her music?
And as you listen, keep in mind what we've been discussing about the potential impact of her music.
Right.
Could she be the one to break down barriers and bring Afrobeat to a global audience?
And if so, what might that mean for the future of the genre?
Right.
For the representation of African artists on the world stage, and for the power of music to connect us all?
Those are some big questions to think about.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to start exploring them is just dive into Lady Kola's music.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Go in with open ears and an open mind. Let the music kind of wash over you.
Okay.
What emotions does it evoke? What stories do you hear in the lyrics?
I love that. It's not just about passive listening.
Right.
It's about actively engaging with the music, letting it spark your own thoughts and interpretations.
Exactly.
As you're listening, think back to what we've been discussing.
Yeah.
How does her sound reflect those diverse influences we talked about? The high life, the Afrobeat, the R&B, the hip hop.
Right.
And how does she use her music to address those themes of social change, empowerment, and self-love?
Yeah. Does her music feel like a movement, a call to action? I'm curious to hear your takeaways, listener. What resonates with you? What makes Lady Kola stand out from other artists you've heard?
Because here's the thing, music is subjective.
Yeah.
What moves that?
Yeah.
One person might not move another,
It's true.
but that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
It has the ability to connect with us on a deeply personal level.
Absolutely. And sometimes it can even spark broader conversations
What
and
else?
inspire real change.
Yeah.
If Lady Kola's music does achieve global recognition, it could have a ripple effect far beyond the music industry.
Imagine her message reaching millions of people around the world.
Right.
It could shift perceptions, challenge stereotypes, and empower a new generation of artists and activists.
It's an exciting possibility to consider. And it all starts with you taking that first step, listening to her music and forming your own opinions.
So go ahead, listener. Seek out Lady Kola's music.
Yeah.
Dive into her world. And then come back and tell us what you think.
We'd love to hear what you discover.
Yeah, because ultimately, the beauty of music lies in its ability to connect us, to spark conversations, and to inspire us to think differently about the world around us.
Well said.
This has been such a fascinating journey.
It has.
We started with just a podcast episode
Yeah.
and ended up exploring the potential impact of an artist on a global scale.
And that's the magic of the deep dive.
Yeah.
It takes you on unexpected journeys, sparking curiosity and leaving you with more questions than answers.
That's exactly where we want you to be, listener.
Yeah.
Curious, engaged, and ready to explore further.
Absolutely.
So until next time, keep those ears open, those minds curious, and those playlists ready for new discoveries.
Yes.
We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.
Sounds good.